Story 1. How do I tell my husband about my son's trans girlfriend? I have 3 sons, 32, 28, and 26. All of my sons are very successful young men and are on their own. My oldest and youngest were always very outgoing and were kind of party animals in high school and college. My middle focused on his grades and future from a young age. He moved out the youngest into his own home. Anyway, my middle had a very bad ex-girlfriend. I would like to say worse, but I read the rules here. Basically, they dated since 17 and she cheated on him several times. My son never left because he loved her, but eventually he realized she was a bad woman and left her. Only took 8 years. Anyway, my oldest got married at 29 and my youngest is engaged. They give my middle son a lot of crap because he is single, but I always say that his ex kind of messed up his sense of love and confidence. They don't understand what he went through. My husband agrees. 6 months ago he started dating this new girl, that we just met yesterday. I was happy to hear that he found someone. She is very educated and smart, according to him. They have similar personalities and interest. Considering my middle is kind of a nerd, that made me very happy to hear. Anyway, I wanted to meet her immediately. My son said that she is very shy and it would take her time. 6 months later she told him that she is ready to meet us. So Friday afternoon, my husband decides to grill. Everyone comes over. Then my son and his new girlfriend show up. This beautiful girl walks in holding his hand and standing behind him. He was right, she is very shy. We all introduce ourselves and we will call her Sadie. Sadie was quiet but said hi to everyone. She honestly associated the most with our dog that night. My sons go out and help their dad cook. My daughter-in-law goes out with my grandbaby, and soon-to-be daughter-in-law and her are best friends till they go out together. I ask if Sadie would like to help me finish the sides and chop some stuff. She says sure. I just ask how they met and typical conversations. Eventually my middle son comes in and comes up behind her, pokes her booty. She gives him a really look and hits in the arm and he grabs her and pick her up as they laugh. I say put her down, don't be so rough on her. My son just says okay, put her down and goes back out. I said, sorry, 3 boys. Sometimes they are a little too rough, but he is harmless. She said, I know he is. I used to wrestle with my dad and brother growing up too. I said, your mom let her daughter wrestle her older brother and dad? She said, well, I used to be a boy so I guess it was different, and giggled. I froze. I said, what? Her face went snow white and immediate tears rolled down her face. She said, he didn't tell you? I went no. She said, I think I should leave, I am sorry. I grabbed her and said no, stay here. I said, does my son know? She said yes, he knows. She then said, I always bring it up first date so if there are issues, we don't waste each other's time. To be honest, I am very surprised, but my son has never been so happy so I dropped it. I honestly just couldn't believe it. I mean, you would never know. She is gorgeous. She asked if I though of her different. I said that you make my son happy and as long as you treat him right I won't care. She just said thank you. I called my son today because his dad wants to get to know her more and wants to go to dinner with just them and us. He said sure. I brought up our conversation and he said he knows. He said that she is just really shy about it, doesn't talk about it at all. She just tried to run under the radar. He said that since you know we need to tell dad, but they discuss me kind of pre-telling my husband. Before tomorrow evening. Any idea on how, or should I tell my son before we go that he and her are going to have to do it? Any help would greatly appreciated, thank you. Update. Hello everybody. I would like just first say thank you for the kind words. Everything, believe it or not, went very well. I took the advice and told my husband earlier than I had planned. I told him at noon when we were going to pick up my son, we will call Sam and Sadie at 6. The conversation basically was fairly quick. I just told him I needed to tell him something and he had to promise me not to be upset. He just said speak. I just said, Sadie is trans. He just went, okay. He said we'll talk later. I said something about dinner and he just said we will talk later. I told Sam and told him I have his back. On the drive to Sam's place I told my husband that Sam loves her and makes him happy. I explained it took a lot of courage from Sadie to be open with us right from the beginning. My husband just said we will talk later, and said I promise I will be on my best behavior. We go pick up Sam and Sadie. It was a nice restaurant so my husband and Sam were in polos and dress pants. Sadie and I were in dresses. They looked so cute together when I saw them. They were matching and everything. We go to dinner and my husband is acting normal. Just asking questions to Sam and Sadie about intentions, how they met, etc. After dinner, I give her a lot of credit. Sadie tried to bring it up with my husband. He just said hold that thought, let's go get ice cream. Husband is obsessed with ice cream. We'll always find an excuse to get it. So we go as he is just telling jokes to everyone in the car and acting a fool, as he always does. We get there and ask what everyone wants. My husband's favorite is chocolate. Mine is cookies and cream, Sam's strawberry, and Sadie's is butter pecan. I promise this matters. We get our ice cream and after a few minutes my husband says, it's weird how there are so many different types of ice cream. When I was a kid there was like 2 or 3. Now they have hundreds it seems like. I was confused where my husband was going with this. He then said, as long as the ice cream that you like tastes good to you and makes you happy, I don't mind forking out a few dollars for a smile. He then winked at Sam and Sadie. That was it. That was the discussion. We took them home and he gave Sam and Sadie each a hug and told Sadie he hopes she can make it to more dinners on the weekends as we do them often. Sadie said that she will. All I have to say, I held my husband's arm the whole way home. I am guilty, I did give him a big present for it. Thank you everyone for your support and kind words. It seems everything is going to be fine. Story 2. AITA for reporting my sister's best friend who's a doctor for telling her about my diagnosis. AITA for wanting to report my doctor, who also happens to be my sister's lifelong best friend, for telling her I'm on Vyvanse, a total HIPAA violation. My oldest sister's lifelong best friend has been my doctor for a couple of years. Initially my doctor, Dr. A, was a colleague of hers from the same clinic, but after my doctor, Dr. A, was away on maternity leave, I temporarily switched to my sister's friend, Dr. B, as my primary physician, and it's been that way since the pandemic began and I never switched back. I have ADHD and get prescription meds for it and have been for a few years now, something I haven't shared with any of my family members for fear of backlash since I come from a long line of type A overachievers who don't believe in ADHD and write it off as laziness. A few days ago, my siblings and I were hanging out at my sister's house watching the Matthew Perry, Diane Sawyer episode where he shares his history with substance abuse, and I made a comment about how skinny he looked during one of the seasons of Friends. My sister then, out of nowhere, says to me, well, it started with prescription drugs, so I hope you don't get hooked. I was instantly gripped with a feeling of absolute horror. My other siblings were confused and looking at her for further clarification, but she didn't say anything more. I spent the whole night just frozen and with a deep pit in my stomach. Later, when I found some time alone with her, I had to pry the information out of her. She had just gotten back from a girls' ski trip, and when they were extremely drunk, her friend, my Dr. B, slipped up and mentioned that she saw me recently for an increase in my dosage and basically revealed to my sister that I have been taking prescription Vyvanse for a few years now. I'm so livid, feel utter betrayal, and have a strong urge to report her for breaking HIPAA regulations. My sister won't stop texting and calling me about it, literally all day long, begging me not to ruin her friend's life forever after years of hard work. She's obviously worried about losing her friend, but she couldn't care less about how disrespected I feel and how my privacy was violated. And more than anything, I worry that my sister will share it with my parents and my family will never look at me or my achievements the same. ETA, a little more info. I've known Dr. B my entire life, as long as my sister has. She was my sister's friend since they were in first grade and they've remained close and we've hung out with our families on multiple occasions over the years. We've even gone on trips together including my sister's bachelorette. I always looked up to her and found her cool growing up. She and my sister both have kids around the same age and they're close as well. She currently brings in the bigger chunk of the income in their family and they rely on it, and my sister keeps reminding me that I'm also ruining two innocent children's lives in the process, which is the only thing I feel guilt about. I adore those kids and they don't deserve that. But I also cannot get over how betrayed I feel. I always keep a safe distance between personal and professional relationships and would have never picked her to be my doctor had the circumstances not unfolded the way it did. She was the next best doctor and was the obvious choice because I wasn't really looking to switch to a new clinic during the pandemic. Update. Thank you for all the advice and support on my original post. After reading the feedback, I reached out to a close lawyer friend for advice as well. And he, like most of you, agreed that I should report it and to do it without informing anyone else. He said it was better for me to do it sooner to have it on record. They prefer any complaint to be filed within 180 days of when you knew that the act or omission complained of occurred. 2 days after that I reported Dr. B to OCR for violating HIPAA and Patient Safety Act and breaching my fundamental right to health information privacy. I didn't tell my sister or anyone else, but a few days later, I saw my entire family when I went home for the holidays. I hadn't heard anything back yet on my complaint, so I wasn't sure if Dr. B was aware yet, let alone tell my sister that I had reported her, so I didn't say a word. Turns out that wasn't my biggest issue at that moment, though. My sister had already told my parents that I was on an extremely high dose of controlled substances. I knew my parents wouldn't take this news well, but they were far more upset about it than I could have imagined. My dad doesn't believe in ADHD and thinks it's merely an excuse for those that allow themselves to get easily distracted, especially since the age of social media. He even remarked that he noticed I was quite slow with my responses since dropping out of my chess club. Really absurd and offensive comments. I can't even remember a lot of it because I was frozen. I just sat there, nauseous and livid, with tears in my eyes, just listening to the three of them, my parents and sister, take turns going off at me. My mom wanted me to stop all medications immediately, that I'm better than this and smarter than this, and even threatened to tell your professors that you're on drugs if you leave us with no choice. But when she said that, it hit me. I had a choice. I could choose. I could choose to never have to deal with this again and to not let them treat me this way anymore. So I did. I chose to say nothing and allowed them to interpret my silence as agreeing and submitting to their ways, as I have done so many times before. And then I went to my room, chose to book a flight and pack up most of my stuff. My books would need buses of their own to be transported anywhere. The next morning, I chose to call an Uber a few hours before my flight, while they were still asleep, and flew back to my university. I chose me. In January, I found out that Dr. B had prior complaints from patients against her, and my report had opened an investigation that is currently ongoing. She's been placed on temporary leave till the case is resolved. I can't share more details on that for now, but I will come back and update once it's done.
That's where the story ends. Please consider subscribing to keep up to date on this post and other daily Reddit content.